We continue now at the top of Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph and Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 27a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara asked what would happen in a situation where a child is falling off a roof and then somebody receives, so to speak, that child with a sword, and the child is killed. So who's going to be responsible? Who's going to get the death penalty? And the Gemara says it's a machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and the Chachamim in the following brisa. The brisa says if you have a situation of 10 people who kill somebody, and whether they're beating the person all at once or whether it's one after the other, so the Tana Kama says Petur, and the Tana Kama says they're potter in that case. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Omer, but Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says Bozeh Charzeh, if it happens one after the other, Ha'achron Chayev, the last one to hit the person is actually Chayev, Mibnei Shakir of Misaso, because he's the one that really brought the death. And the same thing over here, the person who received the child, so to speak, with the sword, who essentially brought about the death, is going to be Chayev the death penalty according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, but according to the Chachamim, according to the Tana Kama, they're all going to be potter. Rashi says, Peturin de Ba'inan Sheyake Kol Nefesh Adam. According to the Tana Kama, it has to be that the person totally kills the other person, Kol HaNefesh, meaning the entire soul, Ve'ein Kan Maka Kol HaNefesh, Upeturim Mimisa. So when you have a bunch of people beating somebody, nobody's actually done the entire killing, and therefore, according to the Chachamim, we say potter. However, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Chayev, according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, we would say Chayev of the last person, Zesha Kiblo B'Sayev, the last one, or in the case of the child falling, the person who received the child with the sword, that person's going to be responsible, Mibnei Shakira ve'es Misaso, because he's the one that ultimately brought about the death. And the Gemara continues along the same lines. Ba shor v'kiblo b'karnav. Let's say a shor, Rashi says it's a shor that's a muad. That comes along and receives that child with its horns, and that's how the child dies. So that's also going to be a machlokas. Plugsad Rabbi Yishmael ben Oshel Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka v'Rabbanan. That's going to be a machlokas between Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, and the Rabbanan. The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, v'nasan pidyon nafsho. It says that the person has to pay the redemption of his soul when he's paying kofar. This is a kofar case, but it's machlokas. What does kofar mean? Demei nizik, according to the Tana Kama, the Rabbanan, the amount you have to pay is the value of the nizik. In this case, it was a child, and so there is no value. That's why you would not have to pay anything. Rabbi Yishmael ben Oshel Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, Omer Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, says no, it's the Demei mazik. It's the value of the mazik, which is the owner of the shore, and so in this case, the owner of the shore would have to pay his own value. Rashi says, Pluksad Rabbi Yishmael v'Rabbanan le'inyan kofar, meaning it was general machlokas by kofar. How much do you pay? Rabbi Yishmael damar kofar b'mazik shayminan meshalim kofar. According to Rabbi Yishmael, who says that we evaluate the kofar payment based on the value of the mazik, so he has to pay the kofar. Avol Rabbanan d'shayminan b'nizik. But according to the Rabbanan, who say the value is done by the nizik, haylo havalei damim. Here you have a baby, and there is no value, potter, therefore potter. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rab, and Rabba says, Nafal merosh hagag, if a man falls from the top of a roof, v'niska be'isha, and he's inserted into a woman, chayev b'dalad dvarim, he's going to be chayev to pay the 4 payments, u'v'yavemto lo kane, but let's say it was a situation of yibum, this was a sister-in-law, that would not be an act of bia, that would be considered a kinyan and acquisition. And the Gemara explains, chayev b'nezek b'tzar b'ripoy b'sheves, when we say he's chayev in dalad dvarim, the 4 things he's chayev to pay are nezek, tzar, ripoy, and sheves, avol boshes lo, but in this case, you're not going to be responsible to pay boshes because it was unintentional. To Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Eino chayev ala boshes ad sheyeh miskavin. You're not chayev to pay boshes unless there was kavana. This is unintentional, so there is no boshes. Rashi explains, V'niska b'isha chayev b'dal devarim. It says again, if he's inserted into a woman, he has to pay the 4 payments. Now we said before, you don't have to pay the 4 payments if it's an accident. Rashi explains, Uchegon shenafal beruach mitzuya. The case over here is it was a common wind. It was something essentially he had to be careful for to have a karav lemezid. That's close to being mazid. That's why you're paying the dalad devarim. Uviyavemto lo kana, but that act of bia is not considered an acquisition in terms of yibum. Afal bisha shaninu habal yavemto bein b'shogeg bein b'mezid kana. Now, even though the halacha is that if there's an act of bia, even if it's b'shogeg, it's a good kinyan. So why isn't it a good kinyan over here? Hani mili hecha deniskavin lebia isha acheres. What that means is he had kavana to have relations with some other woman, and then he had relations with this woman with the yavama. So then we say it's a good kinyan. Avol zelen lo niskavin l'shum bia, but this individual over here had no kavana for any act of bia. Hilkach lo kana. That's why it's not a kinyan. V'imchazar v'yasa echad min ha'achen b'maimer pasla olav. And therefore, if one of the brothers would do a maimer, which is the equivalent of a divorce when you're talking about a yibum situation, so in that situation, that brother would cause that she's disqualified to him. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rab, and Rabba says, Nafal merosh hagag beruach she'ena mitzuya. If a person falls from the top of a roof from a wind that is uncommon, so that's not considered karav lemezid, it's not close close to being on purpose, v'hizik u'biyesh, and he causes damage, and he humiliates the person, chayiv ala nezek u'poter b'dal devarim. Again, he'll be chayiv in terms of the damages, but in that case, he's poter from the 4 payments because it's not on purpose. Beruach mitzuya, but if it's a common wind, that's already karav lemezid, that's close to being on purpose. V'hizik u'biyesh, and he damages and he humiliates. Chayiv b'dal devarim u'poter ala boshas. So in that case, he'll be chayiv to pay the 4 payments. He will still be poter on the boshas because there was no intention. V'im nishapich. Now, let's say he turns himself because he's purposely trying to fall on that individual to soften the impact. So there, even though he's not having intention to humiliate, chayiv af ala boshas, but he's having intention, and therefore he's chayiv even to pay for the boshas. The Tanya, as we learned in the Brayso, mimashma shenemar v'sholcha yada, from the fact that it says in the pasuk that she sends forth her hands. This is the pasuk that's talking about the woman who is grabbing the man. Eini yodeya shechzika, don't I know that she's grabbing his genitals? Matam lomar vechzika. Why does the pasuk have to say that? Lomar lach, what the pasuk is saying to you is, Kevon sheniskavin lahazik, since there was an intention to damage, afal pishalo niskavin labayish, even though there was no intention to humiliate, still you have to pay for the boshas. And the Gemara continues, V'yomar Rabba, and Rabba says, Hiniach lo gachelas alibo v'meis, if a person puts a coal on somebody else over that person's heart and that person dies, the person doesn't remove it, so Potter is going to be Potter in that case because the person should have removed it. Al bigdo v'nisraf, but let's say he puts it on his garment and the garment is burned, so chayiv, so in that case he's chayiv because the other person is not obligated to remove it. The other person could say, I'm not going to remove it, I'm just going to sue you, you're going to have to pay me for the damages. Amar Rava says, Tarvayu Tanoni, both of these halachas are taught in Mishnayos. Aliba, we learn the halacha on his heart. The Tananis, we learned in a Mishnah, Kavash olav l'socha or l'socha mayim. Let's say a person pushes somebody else into a fire, into water, ve'eno yachol lalos misham, and the person's not able to get out of there, v'meis, and he dies, chayev, so then that person, the murderer, is going to be chayev. But dachfo l'socha or l'socha mayim, let's say a person pushes somebody else into a fire, into the water, v'yachol lalos misham, the person is able to extricate himself from the situation, v'meis, but the person does not do so, and he dies, so potter, in that case, the other person is potter, he's not obligated in that case, he's not considered a murderer, because the other person should have removed himself from the situation. But bigdo, but by his garment, so there we also have a Mishnah, the Tanan, as we learned in a Mishnah, kares kesusi shavar eskadi, let's say a person says, I want you to tear my garment, I want you to break my jug, chayev, the person who does it, even if he does it, he has permission, but he's still chayev to pay for the damages. Manas liftor, but if the person says, do it on the condition that you're potter, he makes it clear that the other person is exempt, so then potter, then the other person is in fact exempt, but we see from here that as long as he doesn't say al manas liftor, we say even though he gave permission, the person is not necessarily obligated to refrain. The person has permission to do it, but still the person has to pay for the damages, and the same thing is going to be true if he places the coal on the person's garments. Even though the person could remove the coal from the garments, he could stop the damage, but if he doesn't stop the damage, the person who placed the coal there is chayiv to pay for those damages. And the Gemara continues, Boy Rabba asks the following question, Hiniach gachelas alev avdo ma, what if a person takes a coal and places it on the heart of the other person's slave? What's the halacha in that situation? Kegufo dami, is that like putting it on a person? The person, the eved here, should have taken it off. O kimamono dami, or maybe that's considered like property, like putting it on a garment, and therefore he's going to have to pay. Rashi says, Avdo kegufo dami, v'mhiniach adam gachelas alev avdo pater. Therefore, if a person puts the gachelas on the heart of a servant's pater, shahayolo la'eved l'salkad, because the eved should have removed it. If we say it's considered like a person's body, so to speak, but if it's mamono, then you're going to be chayiv, like we said above. And the Gemara continues, Im tim salom kagufo dami. Now, if you say that it's considered kagufo like his body, so shoroma, what would be the halacha by a shore, by an axe? The axe also could remove it. But hadar pashta, but then the Gemara says, then he answered the question and said, avdo kagufo, person's slave, is considered like his body. We do say the eved should have removed it, but shoro kimamono, but his axe is considered like mammon. And Rashi says, shoro kimamono shein bo das, because the axe has no das, has no understanding, lasalka, that he has to remove it, v'chayiv, and therefore in that case you're going to be chayiv. Hadron aloch ketzad haregel, we will return to you parak ketzad haregel. This is the end of the second parak of Meseches Bava Kamma. If you're enjoying these videos and this channel, please like, share, and subscribe, and take a look at the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And we will now begin the third parak of Meseches Bava Kamma. And the parak begins with the Mishnah, Haminiach es akad b'rishus harabim, if somebody places a kad, a jug, in rishus harabim, uba'achar v'niskal bo, and then somebody else comes and trips over it, v'shavar, and then that person who trips over it breaks it, potter, so that person is potter. V'im huzak bo, now if that person is damaged by the jug, bal hachav is chayiv b'nizko, the owner of the barrel, is chayiv to pay the damages. And Rashi explains, "Hameniach es akad v'shivra pater b'gemar mefarish taima." The Gemara will explain why the person who broke it is going to be pater. V'im huzak ba haniskal, and if the person who trips over it gets damaged, so bal hachavis chayev, the owner of the barrel, is chayev mefarish b'gemara. That will be explained in the Gemara. And the Gemara says, "Pasach bekad v'sayim b'chavis." The Mishnah starts off talking about a kad, a jug, and then all of a sudden we talk about the bal hachavis, the one who owns the barrel. So are we talking about a jug or are we talking about a barrel? And the Gemara says, "U'tanan nami," we have a Mishnah that does the same thing. It says in a Mishnah, "Zeh Babba chaviso v'zeh Babba koraso." Let's say this one is coming and walking with his barrel, and the other one is walking with his crossbeam. Nishbur akado shel zeh b'koraso shel zeh, and the jug of this one is broken by the beam of the other one. Suddenly it switches from chavis to kad. So it says in that Mishnah, pater, it says pater. So pasach b'chavis v'sayim b'kad. Again, that Mishnah is starting off talking about a chavis, and then it finishes talking about a kad. U'tanan nami, and we have another Mishnah like this. The Mishnah says, Zeba b'chaviso shal yain, this person is coming with his barrel of wine, v'zeba b'kado shal davash, the other person has his jug of honey. Nistika chavis shal davash, now it calls it a chavis. If the barrel of honey cracks, it breaks. V'shafach ze yeno, the other person pours out his wine, v'hitzil es hadvash l'soch, in order to save the honey and put it into his container. So ein lo elas charo, so the only thing he can claim is the payment for saving it, but he can't claim any loss of money on the wine. And so again, pasach b'kad, v'sayim b'chavis, it starts with kad, and then it starts talking about a chavis. And Rashi explains, "V'hitzil es hadvash l'soch." Again, he saves the honey inside his container. Mivnei hashahadvash dam of yikarim, because honey is very expensive, so he pours out his wine in order to save the honey. Secharu, he only gets paid like wages, kashar poa, like any other worker. V'in bal hadvash meshalim dmei hayayin. The person who owns the honey does not have to pay for the value of the wine. But again, the point over here is the same, that it starts out talking about kad, and then it switches over to chavis. And so the Gemara says, Amar Rapapa says, Hainu kad, hainu chavis. Kad and chavis really has an identical meaning. The Gemara says, Lamai nafkamina, what difference does it make that it's the same thing? The difference is, Lamekach umemkar, the difference is for sales. As Rashi over here says, Lamekach umemkar shabiyad hamocher losses lo ez shiyir. So let's say they make an agreement to buy a kad or a chavis, the seller can give just whichever one he wants. Ve'afilu hisna imo chavis, even if the condition was a chavis, the mashma gadola, in general, a chavis sounds like something that's larger, like a barrel. No sin lo kad, but he's allowed to give him a kad, which is just a jug, shei katana, which is smaller. That's okay, because those words are used interchangeably. And the Gemara says, "Hey chidami." Well, what exactly is the case? If you're talking about in an area where they don't refer to a kad as a chavis, they don't refer to a chavis as a kad, so halo karula, they don't refer to it that way. Why is the seller allowed to give whatever he wants in such a location? So the Gemara says, "Lo no tzrich." It's necessary that we're in a place, the ruba karula lakada kada, that most people in that place call a kad. Well, a chavis a chavis, and most people call a chavis a chavis. The economy the karula chavisa kadu lakada chavisa, but there are those who interchange the words. They call a chavis a kad and a kad a chavis, and so therefore that's the chiddush. Even though it's a minority of people that do that, still the seller is allowed to say that he is of the minority. Mahu detema, what might you have said, zil basar ruba, that we should follow the majority, but we don't say that. We will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis.